Hello and welcome to another episode of Dad Bods and Bad Attitudes. I'm your host, Christopher Samela. Of course, I'm joined by my partner in crime and his annoying dog, Mark Davis. The dog's name is not Mark Davis. I don't know the dog's name, but he's Mark Davis, candidate for Congress in Florida, District 16. And today we are joined by two very special guests. We're joined by Brandon Culpepper and Robert People, both U.S. Army veterans. And it's really important that we have these guys heard and hear their voices with everything that's going on right now, particularly in the Middle East. But first, I'm going to turn it over to Mark so he can get into some of his topics. And then we'll go from there and start talking to our guests and hear about both Mark and Robert's congressional campaigns. So, Mark, with that, take it away.
Yeah. And just to clarify that it's two dogs and they're bulldogs, and one of them is Roxy and the other one is Remy. Okay. So
Rem,
Roxy and Remy. Yeah. So
are they good names, though, Brandon? Are they really?
Yeah,
yeah,
because
what's
I've
wrong with
known
those
some
names?
crazy people by the name of Roxy, and that sounds the most appropriate.
Okay. Did she work at a certain type of adult establishment?
No, actually,
Okay,
that's
good.
awesome.
All right, Mark,
Cool.
run with it, buddy.
All right, man. So this is a great episode. Like we always do. We like to platform our candidates that are running for office across Florida, and also
Uh-huh.
just special people, right? And we have a couple of those. We got Robert with us, who is running for Congress for U.S. House in Florida's District 15, and then we also have Brandon with us, who is a Army veteran that served in Iraqi freedom, right? So, and both Robert and Brandon, like you were saying, are vets, and so this is going to be a fantastic episode. But before we jump into the seriousness of it, just a couple quick topics. Something I was just watching. It looks like Trump is going to I know, erect a tower in Miami that it's his presidential library, and this thing
Uh-huh.
looks like any Trump tower you would see in the middle of Vegas. It's insane. Anyway,
Right.
we live in
Ostentatious,
most of us live in.
obnoxious, like making up for his clear physical deficiencies. Is that what you're saying?
I think so. I think that thing looks like it's going to be the tallest building in Miami, and then he's going to park that freaking 747 that Qatar gave us. He's going to park that on the first floor of this massive skyscraper. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Mark, is this how you want to start the show? You really want to antagonize me with this insanity.
I can see it festering under here. Yes, and dude.
It's too early to blow my stack. I haven't even gotten into the serious topics, and you're talking about this guy and his fake Burj Khalifa that he wants to put in Miami and then park an airplane in it. Because, the Donald is a small little man with a tiny peepee and he fills his diaper. That's, by the way, that's why he had to leave the Supreme Court early today. A lot of people don't know this, but his diaper was full and he had
Yeah,
to get out of there.
yeah, that makes
Okay.
sense.
So that's all I
He
have to
was
say
filling
about
up his
that.
cankles.
Those cankles were swollen.
So this is how ridiculous it is. Like, so we get this jet from Qatar, which is completely absurd in the first place, right?
Illegal.
Illegal.
Yes.
A bribe.
And then we're going to refurbish it. And I think they said it's going to cost like 200 to 400 million dollars to refurbish this jet to make it worthy to fly around presidents. And then it's going to fly around a president for like a year or two until we get the actual 747 presidential jet replacements.
Right. Yes.
And he's just going to park this $500 million jet in the basement of his presidential library. This is insane.
We'll hear from the gentleman, but I just want to say that he's the most entitled baby that has ever lived in the history of perhaps the world, but certainly of America. Just an entitled baby. He's a man baby. It's mine. It's mine. He's got to put, it doesn't matter what it is. Everything is his. The files that he took home after he was bounced out of office the first time, a plane, it's all mine. So, but talk about it. Let's go to Robert on that. Robert, you're a congressional candidate. Who would get exposed to this? If you were in Congress, you have an opportunity to vote on his impeachment in theory. Talk about the complete and gross grifting and opportunism that you see out of this guy?
Well, the main thing, and then thanks again, gentlemen, for having me on here. It's good to
Yeah.
be here. And the main thing is, I'd be the first one to jump on board with supporting his impeachment, his conviction, and his removal and conviction too. Because the main thing is, you can't let him just ride off into the sunset and not be held accountable for anything he's done. So there has to be more than just getting him out of there. But at the same time, the pushback we continue to see, and it gets front. And I just saw something, as a matter of fact, on a post right before getting on here, was, the idea of we shouldn't do it a third time because we tried it twice and it didn't work. Well, he's done a lot more this time too.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, this is a huge part, the grifting, we're seeing that a whole lot more now than we saw it in the first term.
Yeah.
So, when it comes to this idea of we can't do, we could do it every day if we wanted to. And I wouldn't be so concerned about, the so-called embarrassment of if it doesn't fail, I mean, it doesn't pass, because we can just do it again. The idea is we can't just roll over and let him continue doing things like this, especially when it's in our faces and just blatant, and to the point of just it being comical at this point, where
It
the
is.
stuff that we see him doing.
Yeah, it is comical. Like, none of us are depraved enough to even think of anything that he does. I say that with sincerity. Like, none of the men on this podcast right now are depraved enough to even imagine the stuff that comes into his brain, because he's so narcissistic, so self-centered, that everything is revolves around him and his world. So we couldn't even think of, like, oh, we're going to keep this airplane. I'm going to have the government build me, a presidential library. Then I'm going to take my plane that I'm taking, that's a bribe, and I'm going to put it in there. Like, that stuff doesn't even enter our brains.
Yeah.
Brandon, why don't you weigh in with your opinion just on the general nature of his incessant grifting?
I think that he is like, there's a saying, when somebody tells you who they are, you have to believe them the first time. And he is too dumb to try to hide who he really is. He's always exposed that he's been a selfish sociopath who will do any and everything because he has been privileged enough to get away with any and everything. I mean, he's a guy who took a Nobel Peace Prize that he had no business looking at, more or less touching. And of course
Yeah,
he said he wants a hotel instead of a presidential library because the dumb
right,
bastard can barely read.
right.
So only in his America can he get away with everything that he has, not just during an initial presidential term, but still trick all of these ignorant people that he says that he embraces because they're dumb. Trick
Yeah,
them and grift them into getting him back into office, that he is able to do what he does. And I may have been clickbait that I saw earlier, where you say the Qatari crown were saying they might actually repo the plane. I say do it. I say do
Yeah.
it. Take it back and
right.
show him that he is not this orange god figures that he thinks that he is, and he has these people convinced he is. Because like you
Yeah,
said, Robert, I'm really hoping that you and Mark do get into a position where you can stand your ground and say, you know what? No, we are not going to be bought. We are not going to be coerced, and we are definitely not going to be pushed around by an orange depends wearing ignoramus like you.
Mhm.
Nice. Yes.
Mark, write that down for your campaign. Orange
Take it,
depends wearing, what was it? Ignoramus?
ignoramus.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
I'm sure it's gonna be on loop on one of our social medias here.
Do it. Okay.
So
Cool.
yeah, I think that brings me into my second like what the fuck moment, right? Something that's really, and I've made two posts about this because the first post didn't really take off very well. And sometimes I like to double down on my posts and say, no, this is a big deal. Like you need to, and it was, so it kind of bleeds into this whole Qatar giving us the jet, and Donald Trump was speaking in front of a bunch of investors that he wanted interested in the UAE, right? And he's up there trying to like pitch his big UAE investments, and that the UAE has given him all this money. And, we're talking about Saudi Arabia and Qatar and all these countries that are currently being bombed by
Right. Yeah.
Iran, right? So he has nothing to really like talk about how great these investments are, because we have no idea if the Middle East is even going to be on the map next week, right? So he's sitting here trying to pitch this investment, and then he goes, "Okay, guys, I'm going to open this up for questions, and you guys can talk to me about anything. You can talk to me about."
Say what?
He said that, dude,
Hmm. Yeah.
in a room full of investors that are looking at the UAE like it's on fire. You think they want to talk to an 80-year-old man about fucking sex? Like, what
Hey,
are you talking about,
Do they
dude?
want to talk to any 80-year-old man about sex, let alone
Any
that one?
president? Like,
Ugh.
what? It's bizarre, man.
Robert, go ahead.
I was going to say, Chris, it goes back to what you just said, where it's things that our minds wouldn't even begin to put together of that kind of shit. It's like, of all the things you could say there, you know, but
It was like he doesn't want to talk about the war, obviously, because the Middle East is on fire. And it's almost like he wants to talk about the Epstein files now. That's like take attention away from,
Right, yeah. You
you
need
know.
the Epstein files to take away from the war failure. That's how crazy this is.
He's like, talk to me about Epstein. Don't talk about the war.
I come home from work. Mr. Woman, my wife says, she goes, "Did you hear his latest banger?" That's what she calls them. She calls them bangers. When he comes out with these fucking absurd lies or whatever the thing, she just calls them bangers. Did you hear the latest? No, I didn't hear. What's the latest banger? That he's trying to distract from the war with the Epstein files. That's terrific.
Yeah.
But
There
yeah,
needs to
But anyway,
be a
those are
new
my big.
tearaway calendar. I'm sorry.
Go
I'm sorry, Mark. I didn't mean to interrupt.
go ahead.
yeah. Go ahead, Brandon.
No, I was
That's
saying
all right.
if you remember back during the Bush administration, they had tearaway calendars of 365 days worth of Bush-isms. Every day you had a
Uh huh.
different, just off the wall, what the hell is he talking about comment. There can be
Huh.
a calendar for every year of his terms that of all of the obnoxious crazy shit that is poured out of his just fucking trap, and he never repeats himself. He never repeats himself
Right.
because his infantile brain is just liquefied from all of the neurosyphilis that he's been dealing with for decades,
Yeah.
that he would go in front of these so-called investors and say, "You can ask me about anything, including sex." I'm like, no,
Anything but
and,
that. Please.
and I would go as far as to say too, you could probably get a I'm sorry, morning, afternoon, and evening on every day too, because he says so much crazy
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
stuff. It's like,
Yeah. It wouldn't be a daily tear off, Brandon, if like Bush strategery and you know, like I mean, who could forget when he was in he was in the and he had but for Trump, it literally is incessant. I mean, to your point, Robert, it's incessant. You could never catalog all of the. I know they
you know,
have actually. You can't catalog it though for such a practical sense because he's so crazy. Like you said, he's so neurosyphilis ridden that
yes,
his frontal lobe is turning into jello in real time. You know?
Agreed.
it's it's
Okay.
it's 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 absolutely it's mind boggling how any one of us would be arrested due to a wellness call from a neighbor, from a family member, if we spouted 1/4 of the silly shit that comes out of his mouth. But not only was
In a
he
day.
in a day, Martin, more or
in a
less
day.
10 years worth of this shit. 10 years we have been subjected to this. Once he came down that escalator, I'm like, why didn't that escalator just grab a hold of his pant cuff and drag him through like a scene, like a cut scene from what's the name of that movie series? Final
Like a Final
Destination.
Destination?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it should have eaten him alive when he came down that escalator and just grated
Yeah,
him
I know.
like a head of lettuce.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Mm.
They get julienne salad out of his ass.
Absolutely.
All right.
That's
Well,
what should
Mark,
have
do you have
happened.
any other silly things to get us all fired up about?
I guess one other thing, and I haven't looked into it too much. Looks like Florida just passed a SAVE Act, like their own mini version of the SAVE Act. Oh, I don't know. Robert, do you know any more details on that?
No, no, I was just saying, yeah, I understood that as well. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
other than what you have, no, nothing additional.
So whatever shenanigans Ron DeSantis is up to, it looks like he passed his own Florida version of the Save Act. So we got to dig into what that means, and
Yeah.
I'm sure he's going to get sued. I'm sure it's going to get
Hmm.
overturned.
Listen, this is what happened. So I don't know all of the intricacies of that particular thing. The guy has never had an original thought in his brain in his life. Right? Everything he does is just ripping off Trump because he fashions himself or fancies himself a mini Trump, right? It's going to be challenged immediately. In fact, what Mark Elias said, who's the lawyer that, you know, brings all these, litigates all these cases against the Trump administration for virtually every kind of civil rights violation you could think of or voting rights violation. Anything that has to do with our democracy, Mark Elias is the one litigating it. He said, as soon as the ink is dry, I'm taking your ass to court.
Okay.
So I would imagine even it's potentially, and we can look up during the show. It's possible that he's already brought suit against Ron DeSantis for this latest folly.
Good. Good. And then to follow up on
Follow
that,
up on that.
Trump just signed an executive order saying that he's going to ban essentially mail-in ballot voting, and that was the same executive order that the lawyer that resides in Florida, he's the one that wrote the executive order. He's the lawyer that drafted that executive order that Trump just signed. And I posted on my social medias, I posted his personal cell phone number and his office cell phone number, and just told people to call him and check in on him and ask him why the hell he's writing executive orders that's, going against our Constitution. So if anybody's out there and wants to have some free time this weekend and wants to call somebody, just visit my page and give him a call. Ask him why. Yeah.
All right, cool. So, Mark, I want to get into the serious topic of the day, which is that our commander in chief, perhaps the pedo in chief, has gotten us into a war, a real hot war with a major regional power, and it's a shooting war where people are getting killed all over the place. This was not anticipated by the what did he dub himself, Mark? The president of peace and the first chairman of the board of peace, and he went and had himself awarded the first ever FIFA Peace Prize. So this guy he's all about peace. Donald Trump is all about peace, and that because he went in and did whatever Netanyahu asked him to do and started dropping bombs all over Iran. So I want to talk with these gentlemen, Brandon and Robert, today because they are actual Army veterans who have been in theaters of war. They've been in combat. They've seen it up close and personal. I believe what they're about to do is ground troops sometime in the next month into Iran on some level somewhere. It could be in the next couple of days. It could be 4 weeks from now. To set the stage, and you guys probably know, there's one Marine Expeditionary Unit that is transiting from Japan and will be there soon. Then there's another one that was sent from San Diego that will take obviously a lot longer to get there, but it ultimately will get there. And then he mobilized, I believe, one brigade of the 82nd Airborne, and the rest of them are ready to be called up. As you guys, as veterans, know, the 82nd is supposed to be able to be called in like 18 hours or 24 hours or something like that and be ready and be deployed, something to that effect. So I believe that they fully intend to go further with this thing and actually put boots on the ground. Just to clarify, and so that we're all on the same page, is that, Brandon, firstly, is that your understanding based on the news as to what's going on, or do you have a different take on that?
I see it as
I see it as
it's bringing me right back to February of 2003. I enlisted in August of 2001, just before 9/11. My birthday is on the 7th, celebrated a birthday in boot camp, and then September 11th happened. So I enlisted during a time of peace, and then we were ramped up to war, and that was what some generals would call a an all-out war effort, because the entire country was hit hard. It was crippled. And you had people around the corner, just like during World War II, ready to enlist, ready to take a fight to an enemy who attacked us on our own turf. President Bush rode that wave from 2001 all the way to 2009. That was pretty much my entire enlistment, my entire career. Fast forward to February 2003. I was stationed with a United States Army Special Operations Command Unit, 10th Special Forces Group. I thought we would be going to Afghanistan. That's why I was ready to go. But instead, we had other plans. We were actually staging to go into, we were positioned for the invasion of Iraq. And it wasn't until the last minute while we were training for infill and exfil that we were told we're going into Iraq. We won't be able to go through Turkey's because they absolutely want nothing to do with your mission. You're going to be going around. And that's where we received my first taste of combat was flying into Iraq for the invasion, and it was part of a mission called Operation Ugly Baby. There were 3 aircrafts, and 2 of them received severe air to surface artillery fire and were nearly shot out of the sky before we even hit the ground. And it was absolutely surreal. And this is what they are staging for right now, is what I believe.
Right.
And this is a point where these men who are making these calls, whether it's whiskey breath Hegseth, it's Trump himself, these are members of these positions who have no skin in the game. They have no family members who are enlisted. They have everything to gain and nothing to lose. They want to show off. They want to say, just like Trump said at the beginning, when I first took over, and the troops in Afghanistan didn't even have rounds, according to General Mathis, which was an absolute crock of shit.
Right.
What were we fighting the Taliban with? Rocks and profanity?
Yeah.
No, that's not the case at all. And the fact that we are being staged for yet another massive war that's about to break out, it makes my blood boil, because I was a 20-year-old kid surrounded by all of these veteran special operation commandos who were training me as a young guy to prepare for the worst thing I would ever see in my life. And now
Yeah.
they're being asked to do the same thing, only there is no cause for this. This was absolutely avoidable, but because we have a president who is trying to cover his tracks with the Epstein files, who has been treated like a puppet, not a marionette, but a hand-up ass puppet by Putin and by Netanyahu, because they have any and everything on him. You're going to do what we tell you to do. Otherwise, we're going to unleash all of this hell. And he's been recorded saying, if I go down, I'm taking everybody down with him. And this is what we're seeing now. We're on the verge of young men who were convinced that they were going to be fighting for God and for country, but instead they're about to be put to the grinder for a man who dodged a war 5 times, called a prisoner of war, a coward because he was caught, a sucker because he was caught, but is now the commander-in-chief and is putting them in a position where this is not going to be good.
I want to go to thank you, Brandon, because I agree with that, and I appreciate your perspective, because it's as real as it could possibly be. And Robert, you also deployed into a combat zone. What is your take when you look at, and if you want to look at it from the standpoint of your own experience, but you look at what's transpiring right now with these Marines that are being transited into the theater, and then the 82nd Airborne's being moved into the theater. What do you expect, and what are you anticipating when you look at that? What's your read on it?
Right now, we see, and we can start with this here. We saw what and heard what Rubio said. It was clear that even in from his standpoint, Israel sort of determined this, and we just kind of went with it. So he could barely explain what the mission was. He basically he went all around just saying, hey, we kind of got pulled into this thing. So we got that there. And I was discussing this with some of our volunteers the other day, and it looks very similar. I feel like we're in the worst position now because we're unclear about what the mission is. Everybody's made that more than clear. that they have no idea what we're even trying to do here, and we hear it with whenever Hegseth opens his mouth, when Trump opens his mouth, we're like, okay, so you really don't know what the hell you're doing and what we're going to be, what we're engaging in. But it's the same as in Iraq and Iraq. I'll say that's the first two in 2003, 2005 when I went. We're not going to, or they're not going to say, hey, let's tell everybody that we're going to be engaged in this way. We saw how long those wars lasted, right? So we're not going to tell everyone that we're going to, let's get into this thing and be there for 10, 15 years, because nobody will be okay with it. They're
Uh-uh.
going to they're going to feed us every so often. Oh yeah, we're going to be done in a month, and it's only going to be this long and that long, because they know they won't go further if they go around that. And it's just going to continue to drag. It was the same with, I say, yeah. As a matter of fact, yeah, that first time where combat operations, and Bush said they were over with within maybe a month or two. I can't remember now, but we
You mean
stayed for how
mission
much?
accomplished?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And we stayed in for how much longer after that? So
Yeah, like 20.
it's very much going to be the same. I can't see it going any other way. So yeah, we may, we're going to get everybody in there. We may declare that it's over with, but we're going to be, basically that's going to become almost another duty station. We thought Iraq might become that, but I feel like this, especially with this administration, unless we stop, unless we stop what's going on, this this will go down that same exact path, or
Wow.
similar path. I mean,
What
Okay.
worries me a little bit too is that, like, from what I can hear, is we're only sending like 50,000 troops over there, like, total, and that's like a
It's
very
not really not
small.
even that. And ground troops, Mark, I don't think that they've rallied even 10,000 between one combat brigade and the 82nd and the two MEUs. That's not even 10,000 actual combat troops.
But okay, so even like 50,000 would be the size of like New York's police department,
Yeah,
so
it's
it's such a
nothing.
small amount that they would just be hung out to dry, and it just
100%.
seems like it's more theater than anything.
It, it's a great point, Mark. That is this even well, we don't know, and it's the age old question about Donald Trump: is he dumb, corrupt, or both? Well, he's both, but in what scenarios is he exhibiting one or both of those traits? Right. So in this scenario, this is stupid beyond measure because of the enemy we're talking about here. It's not Iraq, and we don't have the personnel there. We don't have the resources, and we don't have the buy-in from at least a large portion of our allies. And of course, Bush had the coalition of the willing, which is not necessarily all of NATO, but was still, plenty of support. And we were in a position to amass a fairly large army and come in from one side. And Brandon gave you the example of the special forces groups that were dropped in the north of Iraq, so you could have some sort of you know sandwich kind of movement on either end of the country. We're not going to get that. We're going to get none of that, and
We're
we can't
absolutely not.
land.
We're
We're
absolutely
not going to
not,
do any of
because
that.
he pissed all over any remaining allies that we have left. The Kurds have been burned time
Right.
and
By
time
Trump.
and time again by Trump himself.
yes.
And I shed tears the last time the Kurds were abandoned in Syria under his watch, because when I was there, my first tour, and that was during March of 2003. We had old and young Kurds who remembered the SF guys that I was with from when they were there for Operation Provide Hope. They remembered them, and they're like, "You came back, you kept your promise." But those promises have been broken. We don't have their support anymore. So not only do we not have our former NATO allies backing us up on this, we can't ask the Kurds in order to come back and help us with this again, because they're saying, no, you have burned us again and again and again. We're not doing it. So how can you piss on your neighbor's foot and then ask them to watch your house while you go out to Vegas for the weekend? You can't
Right.
do it.
And in this case, the Vegas analogy is we're going to drop bombs all over Iran, kill children, the girls' school. I got to tell you guys, it's unforgivable, and he should be impeached for that alone.
Mhm.
It's a war crime. Well, the entire administration for that alone should be gone. Should just be gone. It's unforgivable. You cannot do that. Everybody in the administration that had any involvement with it should be gone. period. That's not a mistake you get to make. You do not get to do that. And now they're doing all these other things, or they're bombing the infrastructure. And obviously, we're taking our lead from that psychopath that runs Israel. Who's also a criminal and a war criminal on top of that. So he's a criminal, and he's a war criminal, and he's the one who seems to be directing all of this. The puppet master, as you said, Brandon. But in real practical terms, going back to that, we can't land the requisite number of troops, right? You can't land them there. It's not like it's Omaha Beach. It's not some big sandy beach.
Mhm.
You can't, we're not going to have any angle to bring anybody in. So we're not going to have an ally that's going to allow us to stage there. Are you going to airborne drop 10,000 or more troops? And if you have 10,000, what are they doing? Can you create any kind of supply lines in this country with a standing army of 500,000 people and mountains 10,000 feet tall and nuclear facilities that are within these mountains? That's what I'm hearing that they're going to want to try to go recover the nuclear material, which would be I think the only operation you could greenlight that makes any sense, but you're not going to be able to do it. How are you going to support that?
And
So what are your
Iran,
thoughts? Go to Brandon first, and we'll go to Robert. From an actual practical standpoint, executing anything, can we do it? What could get done? And how many people are we going to lose to accomplish it?
This if I'm not a general. I didn't go to war college, but being a former lower enlisted paratrooper, I know some of the resources they would use. They would use the aid, they would use rangers in order to secure airfields because that's what they do. They are the hammer and they are this tip of the spear with a parachute, but we're not talking about dropping 500-600 paratroopers at one time. We're talking small, we're talking platoon size elements, 15, 30-man elements that are going to be they're going to be dropped behind enemy lines in order to secure these airfields in order to try to get logistics in. But we're not talking about fighting the Taliban. We're not talking about fighting goat herders in the mountains with AK-47s and RPGs. We're talking about a very, very well coordinated, very well trained, well equipped Iranian Royal Guard. And you have to respect your enemy in order to know how your enemy fights, in order to learn how to defeat them. And this is going to, I believe it will not be pretty if he gets his way and he pushes the green light in order to invade Iran, because these guys do not mess around. These guys don't mess around. They are receiving not only intelligence from Russia that they've gotten from us on everything that we've done. They've taken out one of our Generation 5 aircrafts. I'm not an Air Force man, but
Right.
hearing that one of our F-25s or F-35s was actually intercepted when it was supposed to be stealth by Iranians Royal Air Force, that gave me chills, and it was not a good way either. Because if we have one of a Generation 5 aircraft that has been detected and can easily be shot down at this point now, sending in the airborne, it's going to be bad. It's, I'm not, I don't mean to throw this out, but I'm just being absolutely realistic. I'm looking more like Vietnam numbers. And this is something that our society, American society, will not be prepared for.
Right. Robert, let's hear from you. What would you add to what Brandon just said based on his experience and knowledge?
What's you know the most dangerous part of this, along with everything else that we're seeing, is that again, this administration doesn't know what they're doing. And even when things are coordinated, even when things are, when there's a more clear mission, we're going to see casualties, and we're going to see more. I mean, one obviously is too many, but we're going to see a lot. So even when you have it like this, where ultimately they're treating this as Call of Duty, they're treating this as
Right.
battleship. This, what do I feel like doing? That's his idea, his mindset, and we're just going to do it that way. And how much are we looking at, how loyal are, the generals that they're putting in place, the ones who are going to make the decisions and so forth? Is he going to let them, sort of have full reign to do what they do, what they've been trained to do, so that at least there's some kind of, you know, some type of organized effort to minimize, the damage as much as possible? Or is every call going to come from Pete Hegseth or Donald Trump, because in that case, it's going to be a complete mess. In Vietnam, you just said, Brandon, Vietnam was terrible, and that was more coordinated, more together. I want to say I'm not entirely versed on that, but that was a little more more organized than well, not a little more, much more than what we're
Right.
seeing now. So when we are when this is what we're looking at, I want to be able to tell because folks have asked me, of course, being a veteran, they've asked me, well, what do you see happening here? I want to be able to say to give something positive, but we're looking at who's at the helm of this, and it's unclear much how much authority he's going to give the people who's working for him, or if they're going to want to remove them and put loyalists in place to just say, hey, whatever we feel like doing, you just go do that. And again, yeah, our service members are going to be they're the pawns in all this.
Right. Dude, that's a great point. Talking about who is going to enact those directives out of the White House or out of the Pentagon. The generals, the brigadier generals, or major generals, guys who are in theater have to make the calls about what's going to happen. Are they going to actually move forward with those plans? Or are they going to say, hold, pump the brakes here, pal? We can't do this without major loss of life. I don't know. Nobody knows the answer to that. I'm
Yeah,
not
I'll tell you what it
optimistic
is,
based on
Chris.
what I've.
I'll tell
Go
you
ahead,
what it
Mark.
is. It's a complete fucking disaster, is what it is. I mean,
Go
you're
ahead.
you're talking about a war that's highly unpopular. Nobody wants to be in this war. I think at first the Iranian people were a little excited that there was talk of regime change, but I think that quickly fizzled out when they realized they're dealing with an equally as bad regime, as evil regime.
Yeah.
And our regime is just gonna kill you, and if it's not helping Trump's numbers, he's just gonna fucking leave. And he's gonna leave with less support from NATO. He's gonna leave with weakened borders in Iran. He's gonna leave when our country and the entire world is probably more behind Iran than it's ever been, you know? I
Wow.
mean, this guy single-handedly pushed our entire country to almost look to Iran for real news because we can't
Uh huh.
even believe the Trump administration. I mean, this entire thing was disgusting for our country and is gonna ruin our relations for years.
Yeah.
So completely ridiculous.
Mark, I mean, you make a lot of great points with respect to what the ramifications of this are. And then, like, just geopolitically looking at the fact that these folks, yeah, I think there was some excitement about can America get this regime out of there? And then they realized we're just bombing the shit out of them indiscriminately. So why would they back what we're doing? We're bombing their schools, we're bombing their infrastructure. Sure, maybe we thought we got some military installations and anti-aircraft or ballistic launchers or whatever, but I mean, we've killed people there. We've killed civilians there. There's nothing to back. They'd rather go with the devil they know than the devil they don't. They saw what we did in Iraq, and we actually made an attempt in Iraq to replace the regime. We're not even doing that here. So, I mean, they don't even know. We killed our first choice, we killed our second choice, we killed our third choice. We don't know who we're talking to. That's not me saying that. That's our government saying that. You guys probably heard that. So I just think, you make a great point. And the last thing that we haven't even touched on regarding, the theater there is that the Strait of Hormuz is completely in jeopardy. And now Iran somehow has all the cards and they're using it, they're operating a toll booth there. How the hell we let this happen? It's the greatest failure in American foreign policy probably ever to let the Strait of Hormuz end up as a toll booth after we started you know, a military operation against Iran. I cannot believe we allowed that to happen. Mark, you're in the community. You see the results of that. This is not a joke. When they can't get oil out of there, price of everything in your shopping cart goes up. I mean, what are you hearing in west coast of Florida with regard to that?
I mean, probably the same thing that Robert's hearing. I mean, gas prices are up, everything's up. I drive a little Camaro, and it does take premium gas, but it's not a very big tank, and it costs me, I think it was like 85 dollars or something
Holy
like that
moly!
to fill up, and But I've been challenging people on the west side here to get at least to $86.47. So if you get to 8647 and take a picture of that, that might be a good use of these high gas prices. So, but everything's up, and it's ridiculous that we have to put up with this. And now Trump is probably he's got an address tonight that he's going to talk to the people. I think at 9 o'clock, and he's
Is this
probably
an
going to
April
say
Fool's
that he,
joke?
huh?
Is it an April Fool's joke?
Yeah, he's probably going to say mission accomplished, and he's probably going to say that we're going to fight hard to open up the strait when it was his problem to begin with. Like he causes the fire and then he tries to put it out over and over. So
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah, he's
silly.
the fireman that is also the arsonist, right.
Yes.
Let's go to Robert. He's over there also in west coast of Florida. He's in the Tampa area. He's in District 15 running for office. Robert, what's the, read on the community with regard to everything that's going on right now? Just both in sense of the war in general, but the impact of it on the economics of the community.
It's the gas prices. Yeah, we're not marking our basically neighbors as far as districts go. So we're seeing about the same prices. I was driving around the districts, as a matter of fact, today and yesterday, and one when I stopped to get gas, it was 4.29. That's the cheapest I found. This was further up north in the Dade City, Zephyr Hills area,
Yeah.
and as I'm talking to people, yes, they're upset. You see it on the faces as they're at the pump too. As you're driving by, of course, as you're standing, you're waiting, you're looking at the other pumps. The cost. You see what it is when you pull up and what it was for whoever it was there before you. You're seeing $80, $90, and all that, and it's a lot. Yeah, you start to see it gets so bad that you start to see it on people's faces again as they're just going about their days. And I've come across, there are a lot of veterans here, a lot of family members and, again, when I mentioned that I'm a veteran, of course, once they find that out, they want to ask us, just like you're doing here. They want to ask us, okay, what do you see? What's going on? Kind of they're leaning on us, to give them something. And I despise the fact that I can't give them something positive. I'm not looking to lie to people or to just, feed them a lot of bull, but at the same time, I want to give them something that, their family members are over there. I want to show some, sensitivity and respect to that. And, because I'm not going to be the one to have to come back to tell them that something happened. Neither will Trump, neither will Hegseth. Provost Marshall is going to do that. So whenever I hear either of them talking about, in vague, generic terms about how much we're going to bomb all this and
Yeah.
they're never going to mess with us again and they'll
Yeah.
know,
Some
just sounded stupid, like sounded like
guest
some
telling
damn
them.
dollar
Yeah.
store, uh, enemies. I forgot the term someone used, but that's what they're sounding like. Just you can tell they're just the ego, the narcissism is just out of control. But again, they're not going to have to go and meet with the family members to
Yeah.
these masterminds. There we go. They're trying to sound like masterminds, and they just don't. They sound more ignorant the more they speak. They're not going to be the ones that have to talk to them. So when I see these family members looking at me and really heartfelt, trying to understand what's happening, it bothers me that even as a veteran, someone that they really would look to and expect to know something, I can't tell them anything. Chris, I think you mentioned this before because it's just because our minds can't we can't fathom what they could be thinking, where they're going to go next. What is he going to say at 9 o'clock? Well, it's 7:23 now. We can't even put together what we think might come out because he'll turn around and say something else, like with the whole damn sex thing. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
what? We can't, none of us will be able to come up with what he might say because he'll take it to the curb on us.
He doesn't
That's
even know what he's going to say. He
he
doesn't
I
even.
doesn't know.
agree with
Yeah,
Mark
yeah,
too.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. He doesn't know. So you see he's gonna wing it and we laugh at this here and some people are really just it's it's bothersome. So to answer the question, it's rough and I want to give them some kind of hope because I'm asking them also, and Mark, as you're doing too, to trust me and have the faith in me and invest in me to be part of what helps fix this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I wanted to ask Robert about his campaign a little bit. Robert, you've to this point you've talked about you're a 21-year vet of the U.S. Army, and you're now running for Congress in Florida's District 15, which is in the Tampa area. Why don't you tell us a little bit, some other things about yourself and what really prompted you to run, and what are some of the principles of your platform?
Okay, well, I originally grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. That's where I joined from after I turned 18. And when I joined the Army, I didn't plan to stay in for 21 years at all. So I planned to do one or two enlistments, maybe. More just kept, something always made me, go one more time after that. But when we're about, I would say about 4 years in, when I was in, this was shortly after I'm sorry, shortly about several months before 9/11, when I was
Uh-huh.
about maybe 8 or 9 months from being done or so. I was ready to get out at that point. This was, in Fort Cavazos, what Fort Hood most of us remember, but Fort Cavazos now, and we had an assembly that took place, and the base command sergeant major talked to us before we started. Now, this was for just the junior soldiers, the specialists and below, and he mentioned to us, he said, as I'm going around the units, I'm talking to all of you. And I'm getting, a lot of you are complaining, and some of you actually have some good ideas. And he asked us, okay, so how many of you want to stay in to go to the promotion board to be sergeant? Now, a couple raised their hands, I didn't. And he mentioned that's the first time at that point what was I? I was about 20 at the time, 20 years old. And that's the first time I heard the term, being part of the solution and not the problem. And he says, you know what, why not stay in? And go to the promotion board, because it was hard to get anybody to really go, because a lot of soldiers didn't want to do that. So, but why not do that and implement some of the stuff that you're complaining about? See if you can be the one to fix it. If you feel like you can do a better job, as most of you feel like, then your supervisors, then your sergeants, then your units, you be the one to fix that. And that felt like a personal challenge to me. Is to say, okay, let me do one more enlistment and let me go to the board and let me see, of course that, the rest is history afterward. But that came up again after when Trump won.
Uh,
And this is at the point, of course, we saw that the states were all flipping red way damn too fast, because it felt odd. As fast as it was going to Trump, they were being, the states were being awarded to Trump. It's like, wait a minute, this is going. But at one point it was, I was telling my wife, I said, they're flipping fast, but these are the states Trump had before, so we're okay right now. He didn't, they hadn't flipped yet. That, any blue states haven't flipped to that up to that stage. Now we both went to bed, but I knew as soon as I got up, it was about 2 or 3 in the morning. So I'm going to get up and I'm going to come watch to see what's happening. And by that time, of course, we saw it was bad. It was bad for us. And at that point, I said, you know what? It came back to mind again what that command sergeant major said. And we're talking this was 2000. Let me see, 2001. So, 23 years ago, it came
yeah.
back to my mind again. And because I complained so much about Congress over the past 15 years, I said, well, that's the seat I want to run for, because that's what I've had the most to say about. And when it came back, I said, you know what? I can do a better job, most definitely. So that's what I need to do. And because I know because I've talked so much online, I didn't want to be someone who ran away because what we wanted didn't happen. And then
Yeah.
people started, people, would, they would ask me questions, and especially, being a veteran and wanting to run for Congress, and people have suggested I run for some type of office. I didn't want to be someone who ran away. I want to be able to give them something and return something back to them. But I didn't know. I said, what am I going to tell them? And I thought, okay, you know what? This will be it. Let me get in there. Let me go to the front lines of this and be something, be what helps be part of the solution, as I learned back then.
Right. Yeah.
So that's really what got me back into, wanting to do this at this stage now for this office.
That's awesome.
Is it? Is this your first time? Is this your first time running?
Yeah, this is for this office. I ran for the school board in Texas before moving here, but yeah, as far as yeah, I'll say yeah, this is the first, I guess, first real time.
And what have you been doing since you were discharged or retired? What have you been doing? If you taken like any kind of other career path or working in the community?
Yes, I've been a proposal writer basically since I've gotten out. I did ammunition specialist for the first half of my career in the Army, and then I moved to journalism after that, because I've been a writer for a lot of years, and I wanted to do jobs that involved that. Now I was looking for either something in journalism or proposal writing, which I enjoy doing. So I did. So I would say for most of the time I've been out, that's what I've done. I resigned from a proposal writing job to run. So that's been my career path.
Right. Awesome. Any upcoming fundraisers?
Right now, we're looking to put things looking to put things together. I think our team was considering getting some volunteers to join in for karaoke. I went and did karaoke for the first time. When was this? Last week.
You're doing
So
karaoke? That's
they
awesome.
thought it might be a good way to get some volunteers in and get some other folks there. But as far as fundraisers going, we actually did pretty well over the week, and we met our goal for the quarter. So I just ended yesterday.
Awesome.
Yeah, fundraiser wise, we're definitely looking to put some things together. We are less than 5 months out. So for the primary, so we're getting on that.
Great.
Well, let me know. Let me know if you want to do any shared raising or any shared events. I would love to do that with you, Robert.
Okay, that'll work. That'll work. Thanks.
Great. Mark, what's going on with your campaign? What's the latest there?
I would say the biggest thing that we have going on right now is we have our April 4th event in Bradenton. So that's going to be at the Manatee Performing Arts Center. And it's literally right in the middle of Bradenton. It's a beautiful venue. It's actually the same venue that I yelled at Ron DeSantis at. So,
Yes.
yes,
Synergy. I love it.
yes. So coming forward, full circle back there.
Yes. Close the loop.
Yeah. So that's Saturday, April 4th from 2 to 5. It's a 300, we have room for 300 people. And I'm going to obviously be speaking, but it's more so to hear from the community because I talk a lot. I'm always on social media, I'm on podcasts, doing videos. So I want to hear from everybody else and see
Yeah.
what they want me to focus on for the upcoming election run here. So looking forward to that. Free cheesecake, coffee, Bradenton Performing Arts Center, April 4th. And then on top of that, we need volunteers for April 3rd just to help set up. So that would be nice. So we'll be communicating that out as well. But yeah, just a lot of momentum going on and a lot of excitement. And we're excited about what we're doing and moving forward here.
That's awesome. Mark, you're always cooking, baby. You always have multiple irons in the fire. You've got a great team. You got a lot of people enthused about everything you're doing. We've met so many candidates in Florida over the past several months that I think you have a great network of other candidates to partner with and to do some, like collaborative marketing and promotions. So, I think Robert is one of them, but you've met others as well, Ron and Mary Elena and several others. So
I want
I
to talk
think
about
you,
one more thing. So we
yeah,
uh
go for it.
we did a video shoot during No Kings. And,
Yes,
so we hired a guy to come out, and he took video of us talking to the crowd and just normal conversations, and that was really cool. And then we did a, professional fundraising video, and then we did a, video shoot even with drones, and they showed the front of my Camaro, and the front license plate says 8647, you know?
of course.
So we got that shoot of me like coming at the drone and then the drone lifts up and then goes, like it's super cool. So I'm excited to drop those videos soon.
That's awesome. We were talking about the event for April 4th. Are you doing all of the like the sign trucks like we talked about?
Maybe last minute if I get a hold of them. I haven't been talking to them. I probably fumbled that, but
Dang, bro, I gave you
I
some
know
great ideas. I gave you gold, Jerry.
that would have been great. But anyway, Robert, you're invited to the town hall as well. Please feel free to come out.
So, okay, this is you said April
April 4th.
Yeah,
4th.
this Saturday. Yeah. So
Yep. I was totally going to go, Mark, but you had to book it on the day of. I was invited to my little brother and my sister in law's baby shower. Okay. So I'm going to the baby shower and I cannot be in attendance that day, but I will be there in spirit, hopefully, because I gave you a lot of great ideas.
you did, and we're gonna try to video it and maybe even live stream it. So maybe you can just
That would be
watch it on your
awesome.
phone wherever you're at.
That's great. That's great. I wanted to add one other thing before we go, which is it dawned on me earlier, and it's unfortunate that Brandon fell off, and I haven't heard from him, but I think he has some little ones that may have been grabbing his attention. So the last two episodes here, Mark, we've been fortunate enough to have great guests. These guests were guys who are very accomplished, adult guys. I think all you guys. I'm going to try to air everybody out, but everybody seemed to be like in their early to late 40s, all guys in their 40s between Robert, Brandon. And then last week we had Bernard Taylor and we had Rodney Glover. And what we're talking about here is we have 4 accomplished Black men who have great history, great reason to be doing what they're doing in terms of serving their community or pursuing a career in politics and representing the people. And you have an administration, I think it's important to point this out, that is trying to erase, in large part, Black history. Far be it from me and my pasty ass to speak on behalf of the Black community, but it's offensive as shit to me to think about that Jackie Robinson's accomplishments, of all people, would be erased from a government website. That perhaps even more appallingly, Colin Powell's accomplishments and sacrifices were erased from the US federal government's website that was covering his accomplishments as a Black man. And these 4 guests that we've had, and again, it's unfortunate Brandon fell off. These guys have given their lives to the country and their communities. Only Bernard was not a veteran, and he's a firefighter of 20 years. 20 years in the fire department. Rodney, 22 years in the Navy. Robert, yourself, 21 years in the Army, and Brandon, 9 or 10 years in the Army in combat. These men have given everything they could give to their country and their communities, and they're saying it's not enough. I can give more. And I can't tell you how impressed I am, but I'm not surprised because this community has been held down and disrespected since the inception of this country. And it's unacceptable. And it's up to pasty guys like me or gingers like Mark to be willing to say stuff about it because it should offend anybody who has any class, decorum, sense of history, knowledge of the country, and any integrity, dignity, or any honesty to be able to say, this man, regardless of the color of his skin, is an accomplished individual who has a lot to offer and would be a fine representative of the community, irrespective of anything else. And it's up to us to say these things. So, again, Robert, very impressed with what you have to say and offer today on our show. Again, thank you for coming on. I'll give you the last word as our last guest.
Well, I appreciate that. Definitely, anybody, the speaking up, the voices absolutely help because these are things we can't do by ourselves. But when we talk about just fighting, that's where I am right now. I'm looking to fight. I'm not gonna definitely not gonna roll over. I know I'm definitely well aware of we've seen this before. This is nothing new to us. I'm well aware of what we're well aware of what this administration is looking to do. They're very blatant. They're very clear about it. Just real quick, I learned. Let me see. Is the picture still up there? Y'all see this right here? See this right here? That's
Yeah.
my grandmother. She died last year in May, on May 1st, at the age of 87. And we learned at the funeral that she did marching and protesting as well, and none of us knew that before that.
Wow.
And because she was one, she's the type that just she just does what she does, and she doesn't brag, she doesn't
Quiet.
expect
Yeah.
anything from that. That's why a lot of us were surprised. And when I found that out, even when I told her I was running for office, she said she was proud of me, but she didn't mention, oh yeah, by the way, I did. So anyway, I say that just to say that, once I found that out, I said, oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna, if not for, the people who have fought for me that are not related to me, if that's not a good enough reason, it is. But if I need any more motivation, my grandmother was it to say, wait a minute, she thought enough to fight. And, for the time that she came up in, I'm definitely staying in this and making sure I'm fighting so that all the work they did was not in vain.
Dude, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, having that kind of inspiration and motivation, especially for it to come as such a surprise. She
Yeah.
probably was just a strong, quiet type, and kept that to herself. Didn't really think much of it, perhaps, or didn't want to share it. For her to for that to be a revelation, that's the kind of motive. You can't let her down now, Robert.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, no.
You
Yeah.
can't. Robert, what's your website? Let's promote you.
Website is peopleforcongress.com, all spelled out. Peopleforcongress.com.
People for Congress. That's friggin' brilliant.
That-
Mark, People for Congress. That's better than yours, bro.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Well, we got 2
Yeah.
people for Congress here, Robert and Mark, running for neighboring districts here in Florida. That's District 15 for Robert, People for Congress. District 16 for Mark, for Congress.com. Go to their websites, donate, volunteer, help out if you can. Mark, anything you'd like to add before we go?
The only thing I want to say is, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Is vote for Robert because I just want people that I like in neighboring districts if we're going to be sitting next to
Perfect.
each other and hanging out in Washington. So vote for Robert, just because he's a good guy.
Appreciate that, Mark. Thank you.
You got it. Thank you for watching another episode of Dad Bods and Bad Attitudes. Peace.